بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم دائما على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم أما بعد Alhamdulillah, we're beginning the first class in the Ta'limuddin course, the first Saturday class, and inshallah we're going to go over certain important topics in this class, especially with regards to objections. We'll also go into different topics as well with regards to other things as well, like for example, some interesting topics, AI, for example. Can you ask a fatwa to a AI bot? So on and so forth. And also the background behind that. That's one of the topics. But what we'll do is we will have a series of topics, and they will take about, some will take about 8 weeks, some will take 4 weeks, depending on the topic. But the first topic we're gonna actually start out on is the topic on ulumul Quran, the knowledge that we get from the Quran, the history of the Quran, because that's one of the debates that is there. A lot of people have doubts regarding it, and some things are unclear to some people. So we're going to actually go into that and discuss some details regarding that also. This is a adult class. This is a class for adults, for both males and females. So everybody can inshallah take benefit from it, especially students, from starting from college all the way, I think high school going all the way to college, everybody can benefit. And also the working class, the professionals as well, they can also benefit from these topics as well. So this is, geared towards that audience. Inshallah, today, to begin this off, we are going to not really go on our topic fully, but we will talk about the introductory things that a general student of knowledge should know before they start any topic, any learning of Islamic knowledge. In the previous classes, I know my brother has, Sheikh Shadman, he has gone over some etiquettes of a student. Now, I'm going to go over other things as well, along with that, inshallah. Before we begin the lessons, important for us to renew our intention. All right, the Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith, and this is a hadith that's mentioned in the beginning of a lot of the hadith books, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that intentions are based on, that actions are based on their intentions. Actions are based on their intentions. When the Prophet ﷺ is talking about actions, he's actually talking about good actions. Good actions are based on intentions. But, bad actions, it's not talking about bad actions, because obviously bad actions, they're not going to be based on intentions. If you had a good intention and you harmed somebody, you hurt somebody, well, I had a good intention in this, right? It's not going to be such that you're going to be rewarded for that, right? So that's why we have to keep in mind that the hadith is talking about good actions are based on their intentions. We're coming here in the masjid, alhamdulillah, all of you online also, you're sitting, you have the intention of learning Islamic knowledge. As the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned, that whoever seeks Islamic knowledge, whoever treads the path to Islamic knowledge, Allah makes the path to Jannah easy for that person. So alhamdulillah, this is, a glad tiding for all of you, all of us, that we are treading the path to knowledge. And inshallah, with the promise of the Prophet ﷺ, we know that inshallah this path to knowledge will make our path to Jannah easy for us, because you need to have knowledge to do amal. The famous statement of the pious predecessors is al-ilm qabla al-amal, knowledge before action. You have to have that knowledge before you do that action in everything. For example, even in prayer, before you become baligh, before you come to the age of praying, you should know the things, how you're supposed to pray, all the different rules of prayer, the internal and external. Before you go in a marriage, before you get married, you need to know all the implications of that also. That you need to know if you are going to be able to, what are the rights of in marriage, so on and so forth. You need to know them before you enter in a marriage, right? So that's the ilm, that's the knowledge. And actually there's studies that, people have done, which they say that they when they did premarital counseling and then they went inside a marriage, they started a marriage, then there was much more lasting, much more love and affection was there present. So that just shows that if you're prepared for something and then you enter that action, then you will actually enter in a proper manner. And this goes for also business transactions as well, buying a house, buying something, doing a business transaction. That's also included in that. What type of stocks can you buy? All of these different things. We use the same principle, which is that we have to make sure that we have knowledge regarding it before we go into that action, that amal, right? So, that's something for us to keep in mind. The next thing we should know before we start our first lesson is with regards to etiquettes. Etiquette is very different in Islamic knowledge, right? We're used to secular studies, we're used to studying secular sciences, and the secular sciences are very different. They're taught in a different manner. The etiquettes are also different, right? The adab, the etiquettes, right? The ulama, they mentioned that the etiquettes are the things that will bring the internal, it will bring that internal blessing in the knowledge. Right? Somebody just learn something, and it's at a different level than someone else who learns that in a different way, in a different manner, and that is the effect of etiquette. There's a very famous statement of Ali radiallahu anh that I wanted to mention, which is the poetry of Ali radiallahu anh. He says it in Arabic. He says, ليس الجمال بأثواب تزيننا إن الجمال جمال العلم والأدب. He says that Jamal and beauty, true beauty is not what we wear, the nice clothes that we wear. That's not true beauty. He says, إن الجمال جمال العلم والأدب. He says that the true beauty is when a person has knowledge and adab. He has knowledge and etiquette, knowledge and mannerism together. When that person has that, then that makes a great effect on a person. Right? That person looks beautiful internally and externally. Right? Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, it's mentioned about him, and I always mention this, that 5,000 people would come to his dars of hadith. 5,000 people. Only 100 people would narrate from him. The others would come just to see his character, just to see how he was, how he would talk, how the ulama were. People would just come to see them. And in the Islamic world, if you see the history of Islam, you'll see in the Islamic world that at every time they would make sure that there are certain individuals in the masjid who are, the ulama, who are pious ulama there. They would make sure that they're there, because we've seen, if you see history, you'll see that, many people were orphans, actually. Many people would, their fathers would go and fight and they would die, or any type of calamity would happen, and, they're orphans. And how were the orphans taken care of? The orphans were taken care of because of the masajid. Because, of course, monetarily, the masjid was a place. And also that you had individuals that the people would look up to, and they would try to become like them. And they would try to even mimic how they walk, because, they're walking like how the Prophet ﷺ would walk, right? And it's mentioned in hadith. We know how the Prophet ﷺ walked. The teachers would teach the knowledge to their students, and the students would try to become an embodiment of the teacher, and then so on and so forth. It would go down, and as a result, each group of people, each generation is an embodiment of the previous scholars, and that's how the deen came down. So we were mentioning about true beauty, right? These are those scholars that we hear about, that, you know, when people would see them, they would change their lives, right? Because of the way that they would have. And Ali radiallahu anh, he says that they would be with ilm and adab. They would have knowledge and adab. So alhamdulillah, we're trying to, inshallah, seek this knowledge, and we also want adab combined with it. Adab combined with it, so that that knowledge can have a lot of fruit. The second part of his poem is, he says that ليس اليتيم الذي قد مات والده إن اليتيم يتيم العلم والأدب. He says that the true yatim, the true orphan, is not the one that his father has passed away. You know, Islamically, when the father passes away, he's an orphan. He's a true orphan, right? Because of the rules and regulations that are there in Islam. Because of that, now he's an orphan. There's nobody to take care of him. Because in the olden days, what would happen is the father was the one who was earning. He was the source of income. And, you know, if he's not there, if he passes away, then truly that person would be dependent on someone else in terms of money and things like that. So Ali radiallahu anh, he says that the true person who's a yatim, who's a true yatim? A yatim is not the one قَدْ مَاتَ وَالِدُهُ, that his father has passed away. A true yatim is the one who he does not have any knowledge and he does not have adab. Yatimul ilmi wal adabi. He doesn't have ilm and he doesn't have adab. He's not civilized, in other words, right? He doesn't have knowledge. Just imagine, right? Just imagine that, you know, a person who hasn't seen civilization, and how is that person? And you know, we have been instructed so much knowledge. We've been given so much knowledge since school. Since we started school, we've been given so much knowledge, and that knowledge makes us in a certain way. That knowledge makes us interact with people in a certain way. So that's you know, that's something that is you know, for us to note, that the knowledge that we learn and the adab that we have, that is that is a person that is taken care of, who is not a yatim. And a person who doesn't, who's a true yatim, is a person, even if he went to school, he studied, but then he doesn't have knowledge which he's practicing, and he doesn't have adab, then that person doesn't seem civilized. Moving on further, I wanted to mention some points on the way to study Islamic knowledge. Islamic knowledge is studied in a different way, as we were mentioning. Along with studying the Islamic knowledge, we have to also implement and practice upon the knowledge that we learn. That's also part of learning the Islamic knowledge. That's also part of it. Yeah. Yeah, now the way of studying, what's the way of studying Islamic knowledge? I actually mentioned this also on the next part, a little bit more detailed, the actual way of studying. Some scholars, I'll just mention briefly here, that some scholars have mentioned one way, which is that this should be a way that you come to class, right? Before you come to class, you prepare for the dars. You look ahead. You know, if you have a book, then you look ahead in the book, a little bit ahead, just so you know what's going to go on in the class. And then coming to class, paying attention, that's the second step. And the third step they mention is revising, going over the material, right? Internalizing that. I'll mention a little bit more points later on. The next thing is questioning in our religion. A lot of religions you'll see, you know, for example, Christianity and other religions, questioning is not, it's not something that is looked, you know, it's not something good for them. You know, if somebody is questioning, religion, then they will be actually, they're almost like objecting at the religion. And as a result, what are they doing? According to them, they feel like the person, the Satan is taking this person away from their religion, and they need to be in the presence of God, and they need to be taken by Jesus, for example. That's what they mention. But in Islam, the case is different. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the hadith of Jibreel. Hadith of Jibreel is that hadith in which Jibreel alayhi salam, he came in human form. The Prophet ﷺ was sitting in a gathering with the Sahaba. Jibreel alayhi salam came in, and he came in human form. People described him as a person who they did not know, but he didn't have any signs of traveling on him. And Medina was small enough that every person knew the other person. They knew the people. Every person knew each other. So they knew that this person, we've never seen this person before, but he doesn't have any signs of traveling on them. Basically, in those days, when you would travel, you would have dust. You would become all dust. You would have dust all over you. And those were the signs of traveling. When your hair, his hair was jet black when he came in. And that's why they said that. So basically, he came in a human form, and he asked the Prophet some certain questions. What is Islam? What is Iman? What is Ihsan? When is the day of judgment? When is the last hour? He asked these questions, and the Prophet he gave the answers for each one of them, right? I'm not going to go into that deeply, because the point I'm trying to make is regarding questions. All of these different questions he asked, and then after that, when this man left, who was Jibreel alayhi salam, the Prophet ﷺ, afterward, he said something. And him saying this, it teaches us a lot of things. He said that ذَاكَ Jibreel, that was Jibreel, يُعَلِّمُكُمْ دِينَكُمْ. He came to teach you your deen. Right? So that means that, what does that mean? The questions he asked, and then the answers the Prophet ﷺ gave, that was a form of learning deen. So in Islam, actually, questioning and getting answers, this is a form of deen. This is a form of learning deen, question and answer. This is a form of learning deen. So, questions are honored, and they are taken, and you should question. If you have a doubt, you should mention it, but you should mention it to those people who have knowledge. As Allah says in the Quran, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of remembrance, ask the people who have knowledge, if you do not know. Ask those people. Okay? So now we've established that we're supposed to ask questions. If you have questions, you should ask them. Of course, obviously, we should ask it in a proper manner and not right away. If the teacher wants, he could answer at the end. So on and so forth. I won't even go into those things. Lastly, keeping in mind that the Jews, they were actually questioning also. But their questioning seemed as something that was not right. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed them because of that. Right? They were asking in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? Why is Surah Baqarah called Baqarah? Because of this incident that happened with the Jews. The Jews were coming, they came to the Prophet ﷺ, and they were given a command. They're given a command of slaughtering a cow. And they were asking questions over and over. What kind of cow should it be? Should it be a fat cow or a thin cow? Should it be this color or that color? So on and so forth. These questions were asked. But after that, they just made them the ruling hard for themselves. And then as a result, this was seen as something wrong and bad. Why? It was not because of the questions, it was because of the type of questions, the intention behind the questions. That the intention that we should have in our questions should be an intention of learning. Right? That we're going to learn something from this. It shouldn't be something that, some people ask that, there's discussion in the books regarding, is the dog of Ashab Kahf going to be in Jannah? That's like, okay, what was the name of the dog of the Ashab Kahf? right? So like, these things don't really benefit you. So in other words, questions which benefit you. Those are the questions that we should ask. And the Bani Israel, what they were asking were questions which were questions without the intention of making action on them. Right? It's just a hypothetical, but not just a hypothetical with the sake of understanding knowledge, but hypothetical in such a way that you have no intention of following the ruling, and you're just asking for the sake of asking to see what happens, right? The next intention of asking questions is clearing up doubts. Sometimes people have doubts, and these doubts become if they leave those doubts for many years, after many years, the person, maybe at that moment when they had that doubt, they were okay and they were Muslim, but if they did not get their doubt answered, what happens is after many years they end up leaving Islam, or they come to such a state that they hate Islam, or they don't want to follow Islam. So that's why a person should clear up their doubts, and also with the intention of helping others clear up their doubts. Right? You can also ask questions and learn in that way also. The way of questioning regarding the religion, right? Of course, it has to be in a proper manner, right? At a proper time. And also there's actually a book, Sheikh Al-Jama'a, he's Badruddin Al-Jama'a. He's written a book, Tadhkiratu Sami'i wal Mutakallim, and this book is translated in English, The Etiquettes of the Learner. You can get it on Amazon, I believe. Etiquettes of the Learner. This is a good book to have. He tells us the etiquette of all of these things, the etiquette with your own self. When you are learning knowledge, what is the etiquette of your own with your own self? And he mentions, for example, like you have to have purity. You have to purify yourself when you internally and externally, when you're learning, before you learn Islamic knowledge. And then after that, the other steps as well, he mentions regarding having etiquette with others, with your peers, with the teacher, with the books, and with the institution. It's a good book to have and go through, inshallah. Now, a lot of times people say that I don't understand something, right? And there's a lot of times people don't care. They see this, in school and college. Maybe, some students might be like this, where, when they hear something and they don't understand it, they don't try to pursue that. They don't try to go and try to learn that again, or make sure that they learn it. In Islamic knowledge is absolutely different. In the secular studies, maybe you'll get, that wrong in your exam. You won't understand a concept, and maybe in your job place, in your career, you won't need that, perhaps. For example, like somebody who's done till calculus, now he goes in the job place, he's not going to do calculus there, right? He's going to do like algebra or something to that extent, but he's not going to go all the way up there. So in the secular world is different, whereas in the Islamic sciences, you have to learn every single part of it, because perhaps the question you'll have later on, it will be connected to this. Even if it's not applicable to you, you should try to learn that for the sake of protecting the Islamic knowledge, right? So this is a little bit different, where when you're learning Islamic knowledge, you're also learning with the intention of implementing that Islamic knowledge, and also with the intention of propagating it. And how can you propagate it if you don't understand it? So I wanted to mention some of the stories of the pious predecessors. These are stories that will, inshallah, inspire us. And, these are stories that are really good. One of the scholars actually mentions, and, he's one of the senior scholars, who says that there are three if you want to learn deen, you want to understand religion, you have to do three things. You have to understand Quran, Sunnah, and the life of the people of the past. How was their life? How did they bring the Quran and Sunnah in their life? So you have to look at the pious predecessors, because that's our model. They're our model, and they're the ones who were the first people who implemented deen in their life entirely, fully. So we have to kind of look at their life also, and how did they understand deen itself, and the different aspects and in different junctions and different rulings of deen. How did they bring that in their life? We have to see that, because there are, as I mentioned, they're our model. So if somebody does not understand something, what do? What are you supposed to do? You ask again, you try to understand it. You have to try to make yourself understand it. There's a story of Rabi ibn Sulaiman, right? This was Rabi ibn Sulaiman was in the time of Imam Shafi rahimahullah. Imam Shafi was his teacher. Rabi ibn Sulaiman used to be in the dars of Imam Shafi rahimahullah, and Imam Shafi would mention a mas'ala, and Rabi ibn Sulaiman, he would not understand it. And Imam Shafi would mention a second time, and he would not understand it. Third time, it's mentioned, and I'm telling you this from a book, from Sheikh Muhammad Awama writes this. Imam Shafi would explain that one thing to Rabi ibn Sulaiman 40 times. And this is the book saying it. 40 times he would explain the same thing to Rabi ibn Sulaiman, and he would still not understand. And out of embarrassment, he would stand up, he would get up, and he would leave the majlis. He would leave the gathering. And he would go, because out of embarrassment, 40 times. So then after that, Imam Shafi, subhanAllah, these were the scholars of the past. Imam Shafi would give him private lessons separately. He would teach him so he can understand separately. And Imam Shafi, afterward, he would give him so much time, and he would make sure that he understands, subhanAllah, like in a public gathering and in private lessons also. So then Imam Shafi, he mentions that there is no one who has done khidmah like how Rabi ibn Sulaiman has done. The best student of mine is Rabi ibn Sulaiman. This is what he would mention. Why? Because Rabi ibn Sulaiman, he would not give up. He's still listening. He's still, of course, that one time he got up and he left because he's embarrassed that I'm not understanding anything. But he's being true to his knowledge that I didn't understand it. And he would try and try and try over and over, so much that Imam Shafi became very happy with him, that my best student is Rabi ibn Sulaiman. And he would say that the one who had done the most service for me is Rabi ibn Sulaiman. He would mention that. So this is an example for us to kind of keep in mind, that subhanAllah, this is how much they would be meticulous in learning Islamic knowledge. And also, the next part is, how much should I be engrossed in Islamic knowledge? I'm not going to really answer this question, right? How much should I be engrossed in Islamic knowledge? This has to do with your own balance. You have to have your own balance, right? You can't just leave your, work and everything. Okay, I'm so interested in Islam, I'm going to leave my work and I'm going to just study Islamic knowledge. That's not what Islam tells us to do. You got to have that balance, right? The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were such that two brothers, Umar, right? The two brothers, what they would do is, one of them would go to the Prophet ﷺ, learn Islamic knowledge, the other is working, and then they would switch shifts, and then they would teach each other also what they had learned. So Islamic knowledge is to be learned in pieces, gradually. But however, like what I wanted to mention, some of the stories of the people of the past, how much they were engrossed in Islamic knowledge. Just wanted to mention this. But of course, these people were scholars. These people were people that were learning Islamic knowledge, who wanted to learn it at a very deep level, and they were responsible for that as well. But for a general person, of course, they need to have that balance in them. So it's mentioned about Imam Abu al-Abbas, Abu al-Abbas, he regarding him, it's mentioned that he would narrate hadith so much that one time, and he was engrossed in it so much that one time he went and he went to the area near the minbar where you give adhan, the minaret. He went on the minaret. He went near the area where they would give adhan, and he went there and he was about to give adhan, and he started to give adhan, and he says, أخبرنا ربيع بن سليمان وبه قال حدثنا, and then he started saying riwayat of hadith instead of the adhan. And then after that, when he realized, he stopped himself and he laughed, and then he realized that he just started saying knowledge and saying the riwayat of hadith instead of saying the adhan. Right? This was how much he was just engrossed in it, like totally engrossed. It's mentioned, one of the statements is mentioned that that knowledge will not give you a piece of it. Knowledge will not give you a piece of it if you don't give knowledge your total, your entire self. If you don't give your whole self, knowledge will not give a piece of itself to you, right? And then the second person is Hafiz Abu Bakr al-Baghani. Baghandi. So Hafiz Abu Bakr al-Baghandi, he started his salah, and same thing, in his salah, instead of saying Surah Fatiha, he started saying the riwayat of hadith, bihi qala haddathana malikun, and qala haddathana, and saying the riwayat of hadith, that they are so involved in it that they are making something that is simple, they're almost saying this in something that they're always habituated in saying, they're saying that in the salat by mistake. Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani was a Hanafi scholar. When he would spend the entire night in studies, in studying Islamic knowledge, and they mentioned that he would not even get tired. He would not get tired of studying, because he's enjoying it so much. When you have desire and when you enjoy it so much, then you don't feel it as something that is that is stressful or painful, right? And he would say that أين أبناء الملوك من هذه اللذات. He says, where are the sons of the kings? Where the sons of the kings, they don't experience this type of ladhat. They don't experience this type of pleasure that he is feeling. He would say that even the sons of the kings, they don't feel this type of pleasure that Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani feels. And he would spend the entire time there. The people would ask that, oh, Imam Muhammad, why are you, still studying when he was like sick? And he would say that the ummah is, is waiting for what Muhammad says, Muhammad ibn Hassan says, so that's why he would be studying, and he would be pondering and deriving rulings and thinking about all of these things when he would be, even when he was sick. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, mentioned about him, while he was doing tawaf, he would also narrate hadith, and basically in that state of ihram, in the condition of making tawaf, he is also getting that reward of imparting knowledge as well. So this is how much they really took Islamic knowledge and made it part of themselves. Not only that, but they did not waste their time also. You can see that they did not waste their time in other things, in futile things. Rather, they would occupy themselves in learning Islamic knowledge. One of the questions a lot of people ask is, I can't memorize what I learn. I cannot memorize what I learn. So what should I do? I can't memorize it. So some tips I've mentioned here of how to memorize, what to do, is even if you don't have a good memory, you can still learn Islamic knowledge. You don't have to memorize it, but you have to try to internalize it. When the best way to memorize what you learn in Islamic knowledge is that if you bring it in practice, because if you bring it in practice, then automatically you are practicing it and you're learning it, you're reminding yourself, and you will be able to recall it. If you internalize it and you practice it, then inshallah you'll be able to do that. This goes for everything that we're learning, not only this class, but the other classes as well in the Talimuddin course. And then the second way is reviewing the material, like I mentioned to you all regarding reviewing and going over each lesson and everything that was mentioned in the class, trying to go over that after the lesson. That will help you. Imam Abu Hanifa was asked about memorization. He was asked about the memorization. How do you memorize? He says, al-badhl, al-badhlu, al-badhru, al-badhru. He said that. He said, the oil of the lamp, the oil of the lamp. Meaning that if you want to memorize something, you have to spend your time in studying it in the night. And spending a lot of time reviewing and going over it over and over. That's when you're going to learn it and memorize it. Socrates mentioned a little bit something similar. He said that when you drink, when you burn the oil in the lamp, we know that in the olden times they had oil for the lamps. In the night they would put oil and turn on the lamp, and as long as that oil is there, the lamp is still there. The fire, the little lamp is there, the flame is still there. So he would say similar thing. He would say that that when a person's memory will get good when they burn the oil lamp. When they burn the oil, they burn more oil than how much they drink water. They burn more oil than how much they drink water. That's when you will properly learn something, right? So that just shows us, that's just some advice regarding going over the material and memorizing it. With that, inshallah, I wanted to just briefly go over some of the things we're going to actually go over in this discussion, in this class. We might take longer in certain parts of it, but these are the topics. Our topic on Saturday is going to be the history of the Quran. So just wanted to show the table of contents here, and so that we can just briefly see the skeleton that we will delve into. And I can give some reading material that perhaps the students, they can also read. Those who are joining online, if you're not on the WhatsApp group, please do join the WhatsApp group, because that's how we're communicating. And if you are on the WhatsApp group, that's good. I'll be actually communicating on that. I'll put a link of the WhatsApp group here in the chat, inshallah, right now. And you can, inshallah, join that group. So the first topic that we're going to go over, first topic is going to be the preservation of the Quran. A lot of people ask this question regarding the preservation of the Quran. Is the Quran preserved or not? Because they think that it is oral tradition, right? And whenever we're talking about this, the questions we need to ask, and I want you all to also ask those questions. The questions we need to ask are those questions that we see online, right? That we see, the questions that our youngsters face in colleges and universities. Those are the questions we need to ask, because we want to equip all of you with the right answers, and you will only know it's an answer if you know the question, right? If you can only know if it's an answer, or else what happens is, I've seen this with my own self also. Sometimes we'll read Arabic texts, but if we don't know that this is actually an answer to a question, we will just overlook it and say that this is obvious. This is something obvious. And we'll overlook it, and as a result, we will not be able to internalize it and really remember that part of the knowledge, right? So that's why We have to understand regarding the preservation of the Quran. Was the Quran written down? Why was the Quran in the time of, the Quran, why is it in different dialects? We're going to discuss that. The descent of the Quran, the 7 readings of the Quran, the compilation of the Quran. Somebody will, atheist, or somebody who's an ex-Muslim, or, somebody like that on YouTube, you'll hear them saying that, okay, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's Quran was burnt by the Sahaba, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud didn't want his Quran to be burnt. Why? Your Quran was lost. Where's the Quran? So like poking holes like this. So mentioning these type of objections and doubts, these are the things we're going to go over. But inshallah, today's class was just a introductory beginning class on adab and intentions. Inshallah, I make dua that this was beneficial for all of us, and that we are able to, inshallah, continue this class. And if you know other people who might be interested, also increase the numbers. This is a course that's available for everyone online and also on site. And now, the people who are local, we want them to be, especially on site, right? So those who are joining us online, if you can, it's better for you to, inshallah, join us on site. We're in Masjid Zakaria. We're going to be starting the class 11:45 to 12. We'll have a little bit of breakfast for the brothers and sisters. And after that, we'll start our class at 12 to 1, inshallah. And in this class, at the end, we can have, inshallah, Q&A questions. So for this next class, what I want is, everybody to kind of go on YouTube and try to see what are some of the objections that people have against the Quran, right? Some say, oh, it's borrowed from the Tawrat. They say that it's, some Christians, they say that it is borrowed from the Bible and the Torah. Same stories are mentioned here, this and that. So like, think about what would be the answers for that. And just in general, what are some questions? Just coming with questions, that would be something which is good. As we're mentioning the details of the history of the Quran, because history is pretty long and history is a lot of material. Now, if you are going to come with questions at that moment, those questions will be answered, and you'll remember that, okay, this is the answer to my question, right? So inshallah, with that, we'll end this session. If there's any questions, inshallah, you can put it on the chat. There's one question I see. Please work on Arabic language topic or course to make it more simplify or easy, because it's main language. The main language is Arabic, right? The main language of our deen is Arabic. Arabic unites us. Arabic unites the entire Muslim ummah. But however, just because you can't learn Arabic or it's difficult for you, I don't say that you should be not learning fiqh, because that's your daily actions, right? It's more important for a person to learn fiqh and the rulings that are connected with jurisprudence than to learn Arabic. Some people, it's very hard for them to learn Arabic, right? So now, are they gonna just leave everything? No, they should still learn fiqh. Fiqh will change your life. The rulings, they will change your life. It'll make you understand how to live your life. So, and how to please Allah, right? So that's very important. But Arabic is something extra. Arabic's extra, that if you learn Arabic and you recite the Quran and the Quran's being recited to you, you can understand what's going on in the Quran. Or else if you don't understand Arabic, you won't understand it. But even if you don't understand Arabic, you have the translation there. But of course, it's not the same level as the Arabic, but it's at least something there, right? So I would recommend, yes, you're right, that Arabic is important, but more important is also that we also bring in the other sciences in our life and understand them, especially fiqh. Fiqh is probably the most important one, inshallah. Any other questions? Okay, Jazakallah khair for joining. I'm going to
Oh,
inshallah.
actually, there's another question I
Yeah.
put in the chat. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Um,
Yeah,
uh,
I see the question. Which book did you recommend we read for homework? So for homework, I said that you know, maybe you can look for at YouTube to kind of go over that. But if you want to read something, right, to get questions, you can go there. But now, if you want to read something, I would say the principles of an approach to the principles of Islamic science of the Islamic sciences by Mufti Taqi Usmani. That's a good book. The History of the Quran is another book. I think that's the title, The History of the Quran by Azami. Azami. That's also another good book in English. Right? There's a number of books in Arabic, but these two are good in English. The new print of the principles of an approach to the principles of the Islamic sciences is a good translation, inshallah. Okay.
do you have by any chance have PDFs of these books
Yeah,
that you can?
You can get the PDFs of this. Maybe what I'll do is if I can find them, I'll send a PDF of both of them on the group, inshallah.
You also have time for one more quick question?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how quick it might be, but what the last thing you mentioned at the end of class, I think you said like fiqh is the most important knowledge. This is a interesting thing you mentioned because I was discussing this with some of my other brothers as well. We were having a discussion, what is the most important science in Islam? May I ask,
Yeah.
why do you prefer fiqh above all the other sciences such as hadith or theology or other sciences?
Because it's the fruit. It's the fruit. Fiqh, and hadith or Quran, the knowledge of Quran. Some verses are abrogated, some hadith are abrogated. So it's a good question you asked. And fiqh also includes aqidah too, right? They call it fiqh al-akbar. Um, of course, nowadays it's more known as the practical rulings. But when I'm saying fiqh, I'm also including aqidah. Both of these knowledge, this is important because they're the fruit of the Quran and hadith. It's better for you to learn the fruit first before you go into how you came up with the fruit, right? Because the how you came up with them, that is, you know, those are the ahadith. Some ahadith are ma'mul bihi, they are implemented, and some are not. Every hadith is not sunnah. There's a whole discussion on this. You know, sunnah, every sunnah is a hadith. Everything that you say is a sunnah. Sunnah is a habitual practice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? That's sunnah. Every sunnah is a hadith of the Prophet, but every hadith is not sunnah. Every hadith is not something that we're supposed to follow. Right? For example, the Prophet, he was making wudu and he had a little child next to him, little like kindergartner. So the Prophet was playing with him. He took water in his mouth and he spat a little bit on the little child. And that child, he was laughing and he's like, you know, getting a good time. So does that mean that we go in our wudu area and we start spitting at each other? Right? No. So that's why instead of going to the knowledge, which is the hadith in its primitive sense, where it's in the raw sense, where Quran and hadith, where you need to be a scholar to know how to derive. Before that, it's better for you to learn fiqh and learn the fruits of that knowledge. And then after that, we will go into how we came out with that by going in the usul al-fiqh, usul al-hadith. These are things we have to learn. And then after that, you know, person understands a little bit better than previously. Yeah. I hope that
Jazakallah khair.
answers.
Very, very
Okay.
beautiful answer.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, then inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.